We are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly.
Did you ever spend time with the guy? Did you ever meet Diddy?
I've met him before, yeah.
How was he?
Very nice guy, very smart, super business. You know, I mean, he's very successful.
The tension in the Manhattan courthouse was suffocating, a scene straight out of a Hollywood thriller. Sean Diddy Combs, the man who once ruled the music industry with an iron grip, now sat surrounded by his legal team, his carefully curated image of invincibility unraveling with every passing moment. It wasn't just another day in court. It was the day his own sister, Kesha Combs, took the stand against him. And what unfolded sent shockwaves not just through the courtroom, but across the entertainment world. This wasn't just testimony. It was the kind of revelation that could bury even the most powerful figure.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it, a man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying.
Kesha's decision to testify against her brother wasn't just unprecedented. It was seismic. The Combs family had long been shrouded in a veil of secrecy, projecting an image of unity and loyalty, even as whispers of chaos and dysfunction rippled beneath the surface. But that veil was ripped away as Kesha stepped into the witness box, her presence a stark reminder that no one, not even family, was safe from the fallout of this trial. For years, Diddy had cultivated an untouchable persona, a mogul who had built an empire from the ground up. But now, the cracks in that empire were glaring, and Kesha's words threatened to reduce it all to rubble. The courtroom was packed to capacity, with journalists elbowing their way in to catch a glimpse of the unfolding drama. Even in a trial that had already drawn global attention, fueled by allegations of human trafficking, racketeering, and a network of coercion, Kesha's testimony felt like the most explosive moment yet. Her presence alone was a statement. This wasn't just about the allegations from ex-girlfriends, employees, and victims. This was about the family that had been pulled into the storm, a family that, until now, had largely stayed silent. The weight of what she carried was monumental, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. From the outset, Kesha's testimony was a masterclass in restraint and precision, but the content of her words was devastating. She began by recounting their childhood, a world that, on the surface, seemed like the quintessential rags to riches story. Yet, as Kesha revealed, that world was anything but idyllic. She described growing up in a home where party after party blurred the lines between normalcy and dysfunction. Their mother, Janice, known for her strength and resilience, had also hosted gatherings that would later be described as wild by those who attended. Kesha painted a picture of a household where children were exposed to adult behaviors far too early, where bedroom doors were left ajar, revealing scenes that no child should have witnessed. Those parties, Kesha hinted, weren't just harmless fun, they were foundational to the chaos that would follow Sean into adulthood.
Well, certainly there's a lot of information that needs to be substantiated, investigated, and those kinds of things. But when we look at people who become offenders, we oftentimes see early exposure to whether that's or actual behavior, and we oftentimes see that within the family.
The courtroom hung on her every word as she detailed how their upbringing shaped not just her brother's personality, but his view of the world. As the walls of their Mount Vernon home echoed with music, laughter, and unmentionable acts, young Sean watched, absorbed, and, it seems, internalized what he saw. Kesha drew a chilling connection between those early days and the allegations now piling up against him. She suggested that the blurred boundaries in their household created a blueprint for behaviors that would later lead to some of the most shocking claims in entertainment history. The audience was left stunned. Could the upbringing of a boy who would one day become a global superstar have sown the seeds of what prosecutors now call a criminal enterprise?
You know, that kind of environment growing up in is going to have an impact on a child growing up. Now, it doesn't make excuses for what people do in adulthood, and the form that can take really depends on a lot of different things, including things such as what are the family values? Are the family values about, being open and honest about things, or if there's trauma in a family, do families deal with it?
Kesha didn't stop there. She turned her focus to the family dynamics that shifted as Sean rose to fame. Success didn't unify the Combs family. She revealed it fractured them. While Sean became Diddy, the global icon, Kesha, and others in the family were left grappling with feelings of alienation and betrayal. She described how Sean's pursuit of power and status forced him to cut ties with those who couldn't keep up or who, in his eyes, no longer fit into his carefully constructed world. The family was collateral damage in his relentless climb to the top. Estranged was the word Kesha used to describe their relationship, and it landed like a hammer blow in the courtroom. Here was a sister who had known him before the fame, before the money, and now she was testifying against him in what could be the most pivotal moment of his life. As Kesha continued, the courtroom was hit with a series of revelations that only deepened the sense of unease. She spoke about the toxic environment within their family, the manipulation, and the emotional toll it took on everyone involved. She recounted stories of Sean's controlling behavior not just within the music industry, but within his own family. These weren't just anecdotes. They were pieces of a puzzle that painted a picture of a man whose need for power extended far beyond the boardroom or the recording studio.
That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Get punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid, it's gone.
But what truly shook the courtroom was Kesha's account of the impact on her own life. She described how the weight of Cian's actions, both personal and professional, had left scars that she was still grappling with. Her testimony wasn't just about Sean. It was about a family that had been shattered, a legacy that now seemed irreparably tainted. And as she spoke, the audience couldn't help but feel the enormity of what was unfolding. This wasn't just another scandal. This was a reckoning. The defense team was visibly rattled, their usual confidence replaced by an undertone of desperation. For months, they had worked to discredit witnesses, to paint a picture of Sean as a flawed but ultimately misunderstood figure. But Kesha's testimony was different. It wasn't just the content, it was the credibility she brought. She wasn't an outsider with an agenda. She was his sister, someone who had nothing to gain and everything to lose by taking the stand. And that made her words all the more damning.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head.
Even Sean himself seemed shaken. While he had maintained a stoic demeanor for most of the trial, Kesha's words appeared to cut through his armor. His body language shifted, his shoulders tensed, his jaw tightened, and for the first time, he avoided eye contact with the witness. It was as if he knew that this was a turning point, a moment from which there would be no return. As the day's proceedings came to a close, the audience was left reeling. Kesha's testimony wasn't just a revelation, it was a warning. It hinted at deeper, darker secrets yet to be uncovered, at a family history that might hold the key to understanding not just the allegations against Sean, but the man himself. And as the courtroom emptied, one question hung heavy in the air. If his own sister had this much to reveal, what else was waiting in the shadows? The courtroom fallout from Kesha Combs' explosive testimony was still reverberating when the trial took another dramatic turn. Just as the public was beginning to digest her revelations, another name entered the spotlight: Cassie Ventura. Diddy's former girlfriend was next to take the stand, and what she revealed would push this already stunning scandal into even darker territory. If Kesha's testimony cracked open the carefully guarded facade of Diddy's life, Cassie's would shatter it completely. Her allegations weren't just personal, they were systemic, painting a picture of a man who wielded power not just in his professional sphere, but in deeply troubling and abusive ways behind closed doors.
But she was only on the stand for about 30 minutes. And the big takeaway is this story that she tells regarding the email she got from her daughter in December of 2011. This is where Cassie Ventura writes her mother and another person explaining or expressing that Sean Puffy Combs, she said, threatened to put out explicit videos of her. Again, this is around the holiday time, and also saying that he would do something to the person that she was dating at the...
Cassie's relationship with Diddy had always been a subject of public fascination. She was young, beautiful, and talented, a rising star when she first entered his orbit. But her testimony revealed that their glamorous public appearances and red carpet smiles concealed a much darker reality. From the moment she began speaking, Cassie unraveled the threads of a relationship that she described as being built on control, manipulation, and fear. She spoke of a decade-long cycle of psychological and physical abuse, where her every move was monitored, her every decision dictated. It wasn't just a toxic relationship, it was a prison.
So this is when the mother is talking to the jurors, talking to the court, and saying that this was the first time the mom says she realized that her daughter had any issues with possible physical abuse. And in this case, her daughter saying that Sean Combs was going to put these explicit videos out.
But Cassie's testimony didn't just focus on her personal experiences. She dropped a bombshell that tied Diddy's alleged behavior to a larger, more sinister network operating behind the scenes. According to her, he didn't act alone. Cassie claimed that his inner circle, composed of bodyguards, assistants, and longtime confidants, weren't just bystanders. They allegedly played an active role in creating an environment that enabled his actions, coordinating logistics, silencing dissent, and, in some cases, even participating. She described incidents where employees facilitated meetings, ensured privacy, and turned a blind eye to activities that should have raised alarms. This wasn't just a personal failing, Cassie implied. It was systemic. What's even more shocking is the extent to which technology played a role in maintaining control. Cassie revealed that Diddy allegedly used surveillance measures to monitor her, not just in their shared homes, but even when she traveled She described how security cameras weren't just for protection. They were tools of intimidation. Messages and calls were monitored, and she claimed her whereabouts were always known. This level of oversight added another layer to the control, making it nearly impossible for her to escape. It's a chilling revelation that highlights how technology can be weaponized in the hands of those with power and resources.
The prosecution, I believe, was trying to show that level of control that they talked about at the very beginning of this case. And then to see that her family talks about being intimidated and fearing for Cassie's safety. And that's why they sent the money, they said, because they were really concerned. We also learned that the mother's the one who said, you know what, I want to take pictures of this abuse. Again, the mom said she did not know about that.
Perhaps the most damning part of her testimony was her mention of recordings Diddy allegedly kept as leverage. Cassie claimed that intimate moments were filmed without her full knowledge or consent, stored as a way to ensure her silence. These recordings, she said, became the ultimate weapon, a constant reminder that leaving or speaking out could result in humiliation on a global scale. The psychological toll of this alleged tactic was evident as Cassie recounted how she felt trapped, not just physically, but emotionally, fearing that any move against him would come at a cost she wasn't prepared to pay. The courtroom was silent as Cassie recounted the most harrowing moments of her time with Diddy. She described how he allegedly forced her into situations that left her feeling degraded and powerless. Her voice was steady, but the emotion behind her words was unmistakable. She detailed incidents where she felt coerced into behaviors she later described as traumatic, all under the guise of keeping him happy and avoiding his wrath. And the most damning part, she wasn't alone. Cassie's testimony suggested a pattern, a web of control that extended beyond just her to other women who had crossed paths with Diddy.
When it came to the explicit videos, the prosecution asked her, what was your reaction to hearing that your daughter said she was concerned about those explicit videos? When it came to this idea that Cassie was saying, you know, Mom, Kesha Combs is threatening to put out explicit videos of me, she said her reaction to that was she was physically sick and that she said, quote, the tapes through me.
What made her testimony even more chilling were the details she provided about Diddy's methods. Cassie described how he allegedly used his influence and wealth to create an environment where those around him felt they had no choice but to comply. He surrounded himself with enablers, people who helped orchestrate his demands and silence those who dared to speak out. It wasn't just about his actions, it was about the machine he built to protect them. The allegations painted a picture of a man who didn't just cross boundaries but demolished them entirely, leaving a trail of broken lives in his wake.
It is a big part of the case in reference to this notion that she was forced into it. And remember, the criminal enterprise and the racketeering, according to that indictment, is about him using force and threats and arson and all of these things, they said, for his desires. So that's why I think a lot of what we're hearing are these details.
As Cassie spoke, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. Diddy sat at the defense table, his expression inscrutable, but the weight of her words was undeniable. His legal team scrambled to counter her claims, but the damage was done. The public was already forming its own verdict, and it wasn't in his favor. Cassie's testimony wasn't just a revelation. It was a reckoning, one that called into question not just Diddy's actions, but the culture of silence that had allowed them to continue for so long. And then came another twist. Reports began to surface about secret auctions allegedly connected to Diddy's infamous parties. Items and memorabilia from these events were reportedly being sold in private circles, fueling speculation about what they might reveal. Were these auctions a desperate attempt to erase evidence? Or were they simply another layer of the scandal, a reminder of the excess and indulgence that had defined Diddy's rise to power? The very existence of these auctions raised more questions than answers, but one thing was clear. They were yet another crack in the image Diddy had worked so hard to build.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me.
As the trial continued, the ripple effects spread far beyond the courthouse. Celebrities who had once been part of Diddy's inner circle began distancing themselves, issuing carefully worded statements about their shock and disappointment. Some went silent altogether, deleting old social media posts and severing ties. Others, like his former protege Mary J. Blige, were reportedly heartbroken by the allegations, but stopped short of outright condemnation. The entertainment world was in turmoil, with everyone scrambling to protect their own reputations as the scandal deepened. The shift in public perception was swift and brutal. Social media was ablaze with hashtags calling for accountability, with fans and critics alike dissecting every new revelation. Opinion pieces flooded the internet, with commentators debating the broader implications of the trial. Was this a turning point for the industry? A moment of reckoning for a culture that had long turned a blind eye to abuse? Or was it simply another scandal that would fade with time, leaving little in its wake but broken promises and shattered lives? Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team was fighting an uphill battle. Their strategy relied on discrediting witnesses and casting doubt on the prosecution's narrative, but the sheer volume of allegations made that task nearly impossible. Every new piece of testimony, every leaked document, every whispered rumor added to the weight of evidence against him. Insiders described an atmosphere of desperation within his camp, with his attorneys reportedly clashing over how best to proceed.
Now you know to be hands-off with somebody. A number of producers come in to make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you like, or looking at you like you're a woman. You know, when you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept.
The courtroom drama reached another crescendo when the defense attempted to present Diddy as a victim of his own success. They argued that his wealth and fame had made him a target, that the allegations were nothing more than an elaborate scheme to bring him down. But the argument fell flat in the face of the overwhelming evidence and the emotional testimonies of those who had come forward. The public wasn't buying it, and neither were the jurors. As the trial headed into its final weeks, the focus shifted to the role of public opinion. Social media had become a battlefield, with supporters and detractors waging war in the comment sections of every post. Hashtags alternated between calls for justice and declarations of loyalty, creating a digital echo chamber that amplified every twist and turn of the trial. It was a reminder of the power of perception, of how quickly a legacy could unravel in the court of public opinion.
I've lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that because the man card means everything.
And yet, even as the walls closed in, there was an air of uncertainty about what lay ahead. Could Diddy's empire survive this scandal? Would the truth ever fully come to light? Or were there still secrets hidden in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered? The trial may have been the main event, but it was clear that the story was far from over. As we look ahead, one thing is certain. This trial is bigger than Sean Diddy Combs. It's a moment of reckoning for an industry that has long been plagued by allegations of abuse and misconduct. It's a reminder that power and privilege don't grant immunity, that the truth has a way of coming to light no matter how deeply it's buried. And perhaps most importantly, it's a call to action, for accountability, for justice, and for change. So we ask you, our viewers, what do you think? Are we witnessing the fall of an empire, or is this just another chapter in the complicated legacy of Sean Diddy Combs? What does this trial say about the culture of silence that has allowed such behavior to persist for so long? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates as this story continues to unfold. Because if there's one thing we've learned, it's that the truth is stranger, and far more shocking than fiction. Stay tuned,